Asshole teacher denied her job back after bullying a first grader. First of all, I know that some of you guys have insane revenge stories. This story isn't the most extreme revenge story, but I couldn't think of where else to post this. Secondly, I am now a sophomore in high school, while this story happened when I was a first grader. I got most of the details from my mom, as I don't remember much from that time. But seeing as Karma came back just a few months ago, I thought I should learn the full story and share with you guys here. So, here you go. I had just moved into the first grade, and I got the teacher who had just started her first year at the school. I can't remember if she had taught before coming to my school, but I don't think that she did. The day before the first day of school, they had an orientation kind of thing where you came to the school, dropped off school supplies, pick your desk, and meet your teacher and classmates. It was there that I met the teacher. Let's call her Lemonhead. Right from that day, I knew that I didn't like Lemonhead. I didn't really have a reason to dislike her, as my parents thought she was pretty nice. I think I just got some weird vibe from her. Now, I don't remember a lot as previously stated, but I do remember a couple things. I remember that she always got really angry at kids for small issues. She would be furious at kids for things like spilling their water bottles or putting too much glue on a piece of paper. And whenever she would get angry, it would put her in a bad mood for the rest of the day. My class was always pretty misbehaved as well. Actually, my class and the other first grade class at the school. I remember we were so bad that in 5th grade my teacher would take days off because she couldn't stand us. She would even request the sub she knew we hated. But I was in 1st grade, and I don't know how misbehaved we were. The other thing I remember is a small thing that I always wrote off as an accident. My teacher started to call the names of my classmates. When she said your name, you would line up to go to recess. However, she never called my name and left with the rest of the class. Being a first grader who didn't want to break the rules, I just sat there for the whole 15 minutes of recess until my class came back. When Lemonhead heard that I stayed in class, she got angry at me for staying behind and insisted that she called my name. She claimed that I was too busy talking to have heard her. However, not only was I a good student, I was also quiet and didn't have many friends at the time, so I knew that it wasn't as simple as that. Oh well, I told my parents the story after school thinking it was funny, and went on. I passed 1st grade, then 2nd and 3rd. I was in 7th or 8th grade before anything more happened. When I began to mature more, I began to think back to Lemonhead and how she was always angry. At some point I was talking to my mom about my old teachers and I mentioned Lemonhead. But then, she revealed to me something that I had never known. She told me the full story about how awful she truly was. I didn't remember 1st grade that much, but my mom began to tell me about it. After I told my mom the story, she began to get a little annoyed. She had also heard that she was always angry at silly things, and began to try and get more details out of me. Lemonhead was a complete bully to me, and always channeled her anger at me. She would punish me for stupid things like not completing 2 questions on an assignment because I wasn't sure how to do it. Well, if you didn't know how to do it, you should have asked me for help. Why didn't I? Apparently I told my mom that I talked to her as little as possible because of how mean she was. So I didn't unless I absolutely had to. She also once banned me from recess for 2 days because I wasn't wearing a winter coat on when it was 50 degrees out. After months of this, my mom got really concerned. She called the school multiple times to complain about Lemonhead. Eventually, she got permission to make checkups on me. So, every other day, she would stop by and come into my classroom for a bit to make sure I was fine. Lemonhead acted all okay about it and happy to see my mom, but she was furious. It made her worse, but she would only be an ass when no other teachers or parents were around. Since I told my mom this, she kept complaining and made checkups every single day, and lengthened the amount of time she would stay. So what did Lemonhead do? She started locking my mom out of the class. She would open it when my mom showed up. For a while anyways. Ho silly me. I didn't realize the door was latched yet. Sure bitch. But suddenly she came up with a new rule. If the door was locked, students were no longer able to allow someone in if they were at the door. Then, she stopped letting my mom in altogether. Her excuse was that she didn't want her interrupting class, and she also said this. Students have complained that she has been disturbing them when working and that they feel uncomfortable when she is in the room. I don't think most first graders even know what uncomfortable means. But whatever, the school wouldn't just switch me out of that class for some reason. But my mom kept complaining to the school now about being locked out. However, they started warning Lemonhead and SHR backed off a little until the end of the school year. Now comes in a new figure. Let's call him King. He took the other first grade teacher's job when I was in 3rd grade. During his second year teaching, my little brother got him, as my mom requested he isn't put in Lemonhead's class. And, well, he was a blast. He was hilarious, kind. My brother still says he's the best teacher he's ever had to this day. After that year, my mom and him became good friends, and had small chats with him every day when she dropped my brother and I off at school every day. Eventually, my mom told him about the whole situation between Lemonhead and me. He wasn't surprised, as he had been working with her for a year or more at this point and knew her well enough. He had her daughter in his class the year after my brother left, and he said she was a nightmare. Keep King in mind for later then. When I was in 5th or 6th grade, Lemonhead moved away due to something with her husband, and I never thought I'd hear about her again. Until recently, I didn't. This school year started, and my little brother started middle school. As I was at the school before him, I was showing him around. I was showing him to one of his classes. I turned around a corner and found myself face to face with Lemonhead. We just stared at each other for a moment, and I simply said hi. She looked really awkward. She mumbled something I didn't catch, and quickly wove past me. I got home and asked my mom about her. Turns out, she already knew she was back in town. She had already informed King as well. King was furious, because soon after he heard she was going to get her old job back, so he informed all of the other teachers and decided he wasn't going to work with her. He basically told the school, if you hire Lemonhead, I will not be working with her. I will quit. King was a loved teacher, certainly more valuable than Lemonhead ever was, so they didn't want to lose him. More teachers who hated Lemonhead also came forward and said similar things, forcing the school into a position where they could hire Lemonhead, but make many teachers angry or quit. So they refused her the job. Lemonhead said she loved that school, and was furious she didn't get the job. Apparently, she was so angry that she made her son switch out of that school to a new one. I haven't heard anything since, but if I do, I'll post an update. Moral of the story: Donnie bully first graders. Bitch. TL. DR. My first grade teacher was an arsehole to me and my mom the whole year. After moving away, she came back shortly after and was going to get her job back. My mom told her teacher friend all about her, and he told the other teachers and said, if you hire her, I'll quit to the school. So, because of this and other teachers' complaints, she didn't get the job back. Abuse your 9-year-old student. Enjoy losing your career forever. The story may contain triggering stuff and may be long, TLDR will be at the ending. Characters: Teacher, Richard. Counselor, Karen. Me, Mom and my friend, Cedric. All the names are fake, of course. This story starts when I was in the 3rd grade elementary school, 17 years ago. As a side note, I have mild Asperger's syndrome, which was undiagnosed for 17 years, which probably was the reason that I was a prime target for bullying. Back in 2002, I went from a really bad neighborhood to a much better one. At least, at first it was like that. But it started to change when I enrolled into the nearest public school, and even though it was supposedly the best out of the schools in the neighborhood, it was the worst years of my life for 2 years. I was given to this male teacher, Richard, who was my mom's friend's brother, and the woman said that he was well aware of my habits and issues. I usually had to go to psychiatrist after psychiatrist to find out what the hell was wrong with me, who could understand nothing. And he would take good care of me. Oh, how wrong we were. The moment I began even appearing in the class, Richard would ridicule me, call me names, and intentionally give me the works that I really did not understand nor liked at all. All because I didn't take notes in class, since I hated writing with a passion. Eventually, this situation grew to something much worse. My classmate's son, one boy, Cedric, would bully me as well, beating me up until I literally peed myself or throw my belongings out of the window. Me, being the dumb, too kind child I was, I didn't tell anything to my mother or the other better teachers, since I knew there would be hell to pay for them if my mom knew. And the class knew it too, as my mom did once catch them in the act of them beating me up brutally, and got the kids beaten up by their parents and suspended for 2 weeks, if I remember correctly. One day, however, after the 2 kids returned from being suspended, I saw that they were talking to Richard while giving me the death glares as if they were in the right of the situation. I shrugged it off and busied myself with my book, as I was and will always be a bookworm. Had I kept on looking though, I'm sure I would have seen that something was very wrong. Richard then called everyone besides me to his side and told them something that obviously excited them, except for my only friend, who looked shocked. I still didn't pick up on anything, and this almost cost me my life. When the lunch break came, the kids suddenly circled me and started dragging me to the nearest window, intent on throwing me out of it. We were 4 stories high and I was a very thin girl. I wouldn't have stood a chance. Just when they were going to push me out, Cedric got to my aid and pushed them aside while helping me out. Of course, I was terrified and shaking for a while. Then, the kids told Richard that Cedric had saved me, which led to him getting bullied as well. And while this was happening, neither of us noticed that Richard was gone from the classroom. Turns out, he went straight to the school's counselor, who was a horrible woman whom I've always called a witch, even to her face, as I had no verbal filter. Karen. Karen then called my mom and told her that I tried to commit suicide. Much to my mom's horror, she immediately ran to the school and I was called down as well so that I could explain myself. But thankfully, after I tried to tell my mom about what had happened and literally got brushed off by Karen and Richard, Cedric confirmed my story, looking pissed off and a bit scary even as a 9-year-old. That got my mom pissed. She swore that she would end these 2 people's careers if it was the last thing she did. But I still tried to get my mom to drop the subject, since in my childish mind, there was nothing wrong anymore. But she did no such thing. Instead, she secretly documented every single bruise I had, along with the words of my friend about the bullying we both now got. Then came the 2nd year and nothing had changed. In fact, everything got even worse. The kids still tried hard to keep me from getting help and to erase me, as one of them put it. But Cedric wouldn't leave me alone with them, even though it made him the class pariah. His grades even dropped far below average because he was helping the insane little girl. I felt awful about this, but his parents, bless their souls, understood what had been happening and were willing to help us, but my mom rejected it. She had a plan. Then, the last homework Richard gave us came. It was to write what we felt about our teacher, and I was eager to show that even after everything he'd done and said to me, there were no hard feelings for him within me. I got a big cardboard and wrote with big, colorful letters, "I love you, my teacher." We say it like that in here. And carried it to the school the next day. And then the shit hit the fan. When Richard saw what I'd written, he immediately went to Karen and told her to get my mom to school and get me expelled. The reason? I was apparently trying to ruin his marriage by telling him that I loved him. I was 10 years old at that point and had no feelings like that for him in the slightest. When my mom came and learned that they were trying to expel me, I'll never forget the conversation that took place. "Mom, so, why are you trying to expel my daughter?" Richard: "Because it's f***ing obvious that she wants me and she disrupts my class all the time." Karen: "Yes, she even tried to commit." Mom: "Oh, really? I know for a fact that it was staged and I will not stand for this. I already have my proof that you've been abusing my daughter ever since she was put in your care. And I'm very much going to go to the MEB, the Ministry of Education in our country, and talk about this." Neither of them believed her claims, thinking that it was ridiculous of her, until we went to the principal's office and found out the truth in a harsh way. My mom promptly called the Minister of Education, since she had the connections to do so back then, and told about everything they'd done to me, along with saying she was going to mail her proof, and asked her to take both of their teaching licenses and everything. The look on their faces were priceless as they got the notification that it happened. And my mom also made me move classes, which doesn't happen easily in where I live. After that, it was a peaceful time while I stayed in the school, as none of my bullies even came close to me after that. As for Cedric, I'm still friends with him and talk to him from time to time. TLDR: I got the teacher who wanted me dead out of teaching thanks to my mom.